Welcome to Storytime with Pastor Steve. Today's story is Isaac's Chosen Wife. It is based on Genesis chapter 24. It's written by Lucille Glofny and illustrated by Betty Wind. I hope you can see. A righteous man was Abraham, a man of God he was. And he had a son named Isaac, whom he'd raised up carefully. Sarah was his loving wife, and when she passed away, he and Isaac were so lonely, for they missed her every day. Then Abraham said to himself, "My son is now a man. He needs a wife to comfort him and help him where she can." And so they called his trusted servant to his side and said, "My son is very lonely, and it's time for him to wed. Promise he won't choose a wife among the Canaanites. To marry with a heathen girl would surely not be right. But journey to my former home across the land so wide, and from among my people go find my son a bride." "'Twas a long and dangerous journey to this country far away. He crossed o'er hills and valleys, and it took him many a day. But at last he came to Haran, as the sun began to set, when a woman of the city at the well of water met. Each evening they would gather there, and all the news would tell, while filling up their water pitchers with the water from the well. The servant prayed to God above and said, "Lord, let it be the maiden who is kind at heart and gives a drink to me, then draws some water for my camels too. Pray let her be the one that you have chosen as a wife for my dear master's son." Just then a very lovely girl, Rebekah was her name, let down her pitcher in the well and drew it up again. "Could you spare a bit of water," said the servant, "do you think?" And she smiled and answered kindly as she handed him a drink. The man drank from Rebekah's pitcher. Then when he was through, she said, "Sir, I will draw some water for your camels too." She filled her pitcher many times till they all had their fill. The man was very thankful, for he knew this was God's will. He placed an earring in her ear and made of the finest gold, and also bracelets for her wrists, the rarest ever sold. The man then said to fair Rebekah, "Answer me a prayer, I pray. Who is your father, and does he have a room for us to stay? I am the daughter of Bethuel," Rebekah made reply, "the son of Milcah and Nahor, who also dwell nearby." Yes, he has lots of room," she said, "and straw to feed and spare. So bring your camels, come along, you're welcome there." Her brother Laban brought them in and fixed them food to eat and fetched a pan of water so that they could wash their feet. The man refused to eat until he told them why he'd come, of how the Lord had helped him, and all he said and done. The servant said, "Now tell me, please, what will your answer be? May I have your consent to take Rebekah home with me?" Her folks replied, "We can't refuse, for surely 'tis God's plan." Then was the servant's heart made glad. "Lord, thank you," prayed the man. Then he and all his men did eat the feast prepared for them the feast prepared them there. He gave Rebekah and her folks fine presents, rich and rare. He spent the night, then in the morning said, "Now we must go." Her folks replied, "Please let Rebekah stay 10 days or so." But when he said, "We must return," they called the girl and said, "Rebekah, will you go with him, his master's son, to wed?" "Yes, I will go along with him," Rebekah made reply. And so they hugged and kissed her, and they finally said goodbye. She took her nurse and maidens, and they rode the camels too, on that long and weary journey to the land for her so new. When Isaac saw them coming, he went out and met them there, and took her to his mother's tent. They were a happy pair, and Isaac loved Rebekah as he'd never loved before, and Abraham was very glad he wasn't lonely anymore. What a great story of how God takes care of all of the parts of our lives, and he's got people prepared for us. My thought is, and my prayer is, that we are reminded over and over again about what God does and how he works mysterious ways, and that even in the times when things don't seem to be going right, he is there and he takes care of us. May God bless you today.